Okay, so everybody done? Finished copying?
Yes, sir.
Okay, anybody left out? Let me know. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 4, 5, 6, 6. I'm not here. Nishan not here. Nishant. Now, let's take a good look. Supply chain bujhnu koshish गर्ने try to understand it. Kai problem भयो भने बुझेन भने let me know immediately. Feel free to interfere. All right, you can actually speak right in between, no problem. Now, first thing in report writing is we are supposed to note down 2 or 3 main features. Question says clearly, summarize by selecting and reporting the main features. Main features when I go, you might find either 2 or 3 main features, either of this. All right, so sometimes you might find just 1 main feature, but usually 2. All right, sometimes 3. Anyway, first thing is, rough copy ma, question paper ma, will note down 2 or 3 main features. Right? There's a new student fair. We'll note down 2 or 3 main features. Okay. Now, after we've noted down those 2 or 3 main features, report ko details details you're not getting scores, you're just reporting this major points. So you'll note down those 2 or 3 main features. Just task 1 ko case we understand that our main feature was Australia is traditionally dependent on coal, and by the next 20 years, its dependence further increased. France, on the other hand, used a variety of sources, fuel sources, but in the next 20 years, it was more or less reliant on nuclear power. Yo हाम्रो major point हैन. So major point हामीले रफमा लेख्यौं. Okay, त्यो रफमा दुईटा major point लेखेपछि त्यो भयो हाम्रो conclusion. Now take a good look at this. हाम्रो यो उतेसमा चाहिँ first we start with the introduction. Introduction is very simple. What you simply do is you will restate the topic, whatever topic is given there, you will restate it, you're going to rewrite it by paraphrasing it. Paraphrasing, of course, means you're going to simplify it in your own words. That's very simple. Conclusion, there are 2 ways to write the report. Okay, so what I'm discussing here are 2 ways of writing a report. Number 1, you would start with the introduction, you will have the first paragraph. Next, your conclusion, your conclusion, let's say, after introduction. So when you write the conclusion right here, okay, after the introduction, we will call it the overview. We will call it the overview. Writing task 1 exactly यही पाराले लेख्नुपर्छ भन्ने छैन. The examiner does not say, the artist people, they do not say that you'll have to write it exactly in one way. There are hundreds of ways of writing. So remember, if there are 100 candidates taking the IELTS, the examiner would expect 100 different ways of writing, both task 1 and task 2. All right, so remember that there is nothing like one particular way to write. So when you check for IELTS writing, I'm sure you might have done it. You have hundreds of different styles of writing. Some authors would say this is the best. The others would say this is the best. So it all depends. It all depends. But the most important kura चाहिँ whichever style you write, it doesn't matter. The most important thing is you should be able to identify 2 or 3 major points to check them important bio. And then finally, how do you write? How's the English? That's the most important thing. So after all, it's not about how well you can interpret a graph, a table, a bar chart. It's still about writing. Don't forget it. It's still how well you can write. All right, so keep that in mind. So we start with the introduction. This particular, you could write an overview. Overview is basically the summary of your report. Okay, an overview will consist of 1 or 2 sentences, short sentence. For example, Australia is traditionally dependent on coal and is further reliant on coal. for its electricity production, while France initially used a variety of sources, but later on is more reliant on nuclear power. Yo ba hamro summary. अब यो summary चाहिँ end मा लेखे we call it a conclusion, right? Yes, summary लाई चाहिँ before the body paragraph लेखे we call it an overview, right? Now, according to the Cambridge official guide, the official guide of Cambridge would want you to do this. The official guide would want you to write an overview before the body. So if you want to do that, you can always do it. All right. As I've already told you, I'll tell you exactly what conclusion in my I'll leave that to you. All right. So first, I'm going to overview an overall summary of the report. Now, look at the body paragraph. Support your conclusion consisting of 2 or 3 main features. You have a conclusion. So we're writing 2 or 3 main features with facts and figures. Now, in your summary, you've written, right, in your overview, you've written that Australia was traditionally dependent on coal and its dependence is further increasing. How do you know it? How can you claim that? They'll actually support with facts and figures. Have your facts and figures are borrow from the data, from the diagram, from writing task 1. Then we have also said that Australia was, it used a variety of sources, but at the end, Australia was increasingly dependent on nuclear power. Okay, now the question is, how do you know it? How can you support it? In the report writing, you cannot write false information. You're surely going to lose marks, right? You will not come up with some conjectures. No guesswork, no conjectures. You'll have to write very specific information that you can see in the picture, in the diagram. So how can you say that Australia, used a variety of sources? Again, you have to go to the pie chart, right? And you write that. So what we're basically doing is, we're writing the introduction. Right away, we write the summary. So in order to write the summary, you'll take around 2 or 3 minutes to study the diagram. You come up with 2 or 3 main features. Those main features are your summary. Your main features la support gane kasari chai. How do you support it? You'll have to support it with facts and figures. And you're going to support only those 2 or 3 main features. Remember, you will support only this main features. You're not going to support everything. So here we have 2 or 3 main features, right? And then you'll be supporting these 2 or 3 main features. So when I say support, it doesn't mean supporting everything, just supporting these 2 or 3 main features. Okay? And how are you going to support it? You're going to support it with facts and figures, data. So you do it in order to have the main features. Data support. So that's your report writing. So it doesn't mean that you have to write everything. The more you write, the less scores you get. So you're not supposed to be writing everything. Okay, any question? Because now you'll be writing it. Is your question, Arbana?
No, sir.
Bujo? Clearly bujo?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so we need to understand the concept. Right? Praveen, Kesha, any question? Keep bujana when let me know. Anybody? Vijay, Navin, Yuvraj? Any questions? Let me know. So I will assume that everybody has understood it. All right. Now, your overview to know lekera, I will like paid my lekem to conclusion. Right. Now, practice you will always practice from the Cambridge book. All right. Hi there. Hello, Rina. Rina.
Hello, sir. How are you doing?
I'm good, Rina.
I heard you were having some problem with your health.
It's better now. I'm much better. I'm much
to hear about this, sir.
So, Rina, you taking classes?
Not probably. I'm just here to watch out the class.
Hey, okay. Hey, Reena, now I get it.
Rina confusion भयो विजय सरलाई
त्यही त
I was a student.
म भने चाहिँ अरे नयाँ स्टुडेन्ट कहाँबाट आयो anyway now let's get back to our lesson here okay so introduction हामीले overview लेख्यौं चाहिँ summary चाहिँ after the introduction लेख्यौं that becomes the overview यही summary चाहिँ after the body paragraph लेख्यौं that becomes the conclusion. So don't get confused with an overview or a conclusion. If you check the ALTES material, you have lots of materials talking about an overview, some materials talking about conclusion. Okay, there should be no confusion. There are hundreds of ways of writing, right? So it's not that you have to focus on only one style of writing. Okay, so I will stop this. I'll share another screen here. Where are you? Right, so take a look at this. Now you know that in your writing, I've already told you about task 1. You know, I've already talked about task achievement, how it's evaluated whenever. Task 1, how it's evaluated. So first thing is task achievement, right? TA. In essay, we have task response, TR. So task achievement, CC when you go coherence, okay, breaking up the paragraph, all the ideas in the separate paragraphs, linking it together, cohesion. So CC is coherence, cohesion. Next we have LR. LR is basically lexical resource, vocabulary. You should be using a variety of words. And then finally, we've got GRE. GRE means grammar. Now let's look at task achievement. Okay, what exactly about task achievement ma chai examiner le ke khojcha? So go through this. When the examiner assesses the writing, one of the criteria they will use is called task achievement. Look at the wording of this writing task 1 question. Now we know that our question will always look like this. Summarize the information by selecting and reporting the main features and make comparisons. But we say hamro duita tasks hai yani. Summarize and make comparisons. All right. Now, task achievement must fulfill some of these requirements. This means that to achieve a good score for task achievement, you need to give an overview of the main information in the graph. So what is an overview? I've already told you. You summarize the information. All right. And the overview, it comes after the introduction. So the official guide, what I'm displaying to you is the official Cambridge guide. It clearly wants you to write an overview. Okay. If you look at Cambridge Core practice material, they talk about a conclusion. So it's up to you. Feel free. But if I were you, I would probably write an overview because after all, this is the official guide. And it clearly mentions that if you don't write an overview, you'll probably lose points on it. So it's always good to write an overview. So remember, intro bio, overview bio, I'm a conclusion. To conclusion, la support details later. So describe all the most relevant and significant information. It talks about not all the information, but it talks about the most relevant and significant information. So you're not supposed to copy or write on everything, only the most relevant, related, okay, and important, significant information. Your relevant and significant information main features. And then point out the key difference and opinion lekhne haina yaha. Essay writing ma chahi you write your opinion. In report writing, you will never write your opinion. Okay, you simply write about what you can see, not what you cannot see. And then your writing is over 150 words. This we've already discussed. Okay, so that's how it goes. All right. Yuvraj? Yuvraj Kotwal? Nida kya feri? Yes, Buddha sir. Yuvraj? Okay. Okay, questions? Any question? Arpana?
No, sir.
Okay. Bibut sir?
No, sir.
Bibut sir? Hello?
Yes, sir.
Oh yeah, I can hear you, but I'll get the break with this. Your voice will break with this. All right. So if that's the case, if you think you all have understood, then we're going to write this. We're going to write it, right? So hang on there, just a moment. Let me display the stuff for you. Let's close this. Yes. Okay, let's look at this one. Let's take this up here. Okay, 40. Right, so this size should be okay. Now, I'm sure everybody can see this. Get your copy. Now, let's get ready to write. First thing, yesterday, if you, and take a look at the copy. He's only the copy made. Not his, of course. Yesterday, we took a break, right? So, Monday. Monday, I'm like, first thing is summarize the information by selecting and reporting the main features. We wrote 2 or 3 main features. You matra exercise. But today, let's focus on this task. So what we can see here, once again, our main features ke bhayo. Our main feature is that according to this pie chart, Australia was traditionally dependent on more than 50% of its electricity production from coal. And by 2000, its dependence on or its reliance further increased to more than 75%. So in other words, Australia has been increasingly dependent on coal. In case of France, our main feature here, France produced electricity from a variety of sources. But by 2000, in the next 20 years, it produced more than 50% of its electricity from nuclear power. You have the main features there. All right. Now, condense we write the intro, we write the overview. Condense okay, you do it a sentence line. Your overview should be around 2 sentences. It should not be too long, right? So you're going to have these 2 sentences. You'll condense it. That's an overview. Now, overview detail. How can you claim that France produced? How can you claim that Australia was dependent on more than 50% of electricity from coal? And how can you say it further increased? You have no main features, opinion, as a support we'll have to quote from here. So the body paragraph is going to be very important. Now I think it's time to write the body paragraph. Because everybody said, okay, sir, okay, so there should be no excuses. You got to give it a try. So get started. Time to write the body paragraph. In body paragraph, so here we could have at least 2 paragraphs. एउटा paragraph भयो अस्ट्रेलियाको, अर्को paragraph भयो फ्रान्सको. So body paragraph मा चाहिँ feel free, right? Don't write everything in one paragraph. You can have as many paragraphs. So why do we need paragraphs? एउटा specific point को लागि चाहिँ एउटा paragraph चाहियो. So अस्ट्रेलियाको electricity production को लागि we need one paragraph. त्यसपछि फ्रान्सको electricity production को लागि we need another paragraph. Right? So you can have as many paragraphs. So यहाँनिर we're going to have at least 2 paragraphs. Okay, time to get started. I'm giving you 20 minutes. 15 minutes. 15 should be good enough. Perfect like Narina. You just want to get a little idea. Aajko body paragraph ko exercise hai, just to get a little idea. We're not looking for perfection. So first, take a look at these 2 pictures. Okay, so body paragraph 1. You're going to start with body paragraph 1. So you're going to utilize these 2 pie charts. First, because now you'll have to prove that Australia's electricity production was traditionally at 50%. Okay, your Australia ko so if I were you, maybe I'll write something like, initially, initially or in 1980, all right, Australia depended on more than 50% of its electricity production on coal at 50 units. Yeah, bracket ma lekdam bhayo 50 units भनेर, right? While it used other sources also, but negligible. So other sources were hydropower and natural gas. So your hydropower bio, your natural gas bio, at 20 units each. अब ये सब भी लिखना पड़ता है. And but then after 20 years, its production of electricity from coal increased to more than 75%. So now Australia was getting increasingly dependent on coal. And the only other natural resource that it used more was hydropower at 36%. See, यहाँ पहिला 20 थियो hydropower, how you increase by 36%. What about other sources? Other sources become negligible. So अरु सब mention गर्नु पर्दैन, you could say, while the other sources, while electricity production from other sources were negligible or insignificant. Boy, that's done, we're done. त्यति नै लेख्न, त्यसले चाहिँ सपोर्ट गर्नु पर्यो कि अस्ट्रेलियाको पहिला 50% थियो, पछि 75% मा आयो. But of course it's easier said than done, हैन, अब भन्नु पो सजिलो हुन्छ. So you'll have to try writing it. अब हाम्रो मेन भनेको ओभरभ्यू त्यति गाह्रो होइन, इन्ट्रोडक्सन गाह्रो होइन, बडी प्याराग्राफलाई चाहिँ कोहेरेन्स एन्ड कोहेसन आइडियाज निकालेर त्यसलाई अर्गनाइज गरेर त्यसलाई लिंक गर्नु, that is the challenge in task 1. अरु केही छैन, अरु खासै केही प्रब्लम हुँदैन. आइडियालाई अर्गनाइज गर्ने अनि लिंक गर्ने. So I've given you some idea. All right, try that. So start writing. Okay, Bujana, if you need any explanation, let me know. If you don't need any explanation, you start writing. I'll go get a glass of water. Okay, everybody writing? Arpana?
Yes, sir.
Are you done? Ki lag this ho?
Like this, sir.
Yeah. Clearly dekh sir, hai na? Ke
Yes,
problem
sir.
the study going.
Chinese.
Okay. All right. What about you, Praveen? Like this ho?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Vibhucha, are you writing?
Yes, sir.
All right. First one, एकदम detail में लिखना पड़ता है. You just want to get things organized. Are you aware? Coherence, cohesion. है ना? everybody has all this ideas. You all have those points. The challenge in writing task 1 is your points, let's say, how do I arrange it in a logical, sequential manner? So, I arrange organization, that's coherence, and then you use linking words. Similarly, furthermore, okay, on a similar note, likewise, and then you use some transitional words like on the other hand, in contrast, contrary to, unlike, so and so many. Or it's the words there, it's a link on ideas, and that's called cohesion.
Sir, year 2000 मा छ नि त्यो युनिट प्रोड्युस डिफरेन्स हैन 100 युनिट 1980 मा अनि 2000 मा 170 युनिट छैन अनि अस्ट्रेलियाको डिपेन्डेन्सी अन कोल वाज इन्क्रिज्ड बाइ 50 युनिट्स भनेर लेख्नु कि इन्क्रिज्ड एन्ड रिच 130 युनिट
हैन त्यो सब लेख्नु पर्दैन व्हाई यसलाई किन डोन्ट अब यो म्याथमेटिकल क्याल्कुलेसन जस्तो गर्नु पर्दैन यो पार्टलाई यो खाली इन्फर्मेसन मात्र दिएको राइट जस्ट अ मोमेन्ट
was increased by 50 units
just you जुन चाहिँ units दिएको छ नि it's simplest to inform you कि 1980 मा total 100 units भयो 2000 मा चाहिँ 70 units more हैन so you don't have to say 80 units ले increase गर्यो भने forget about it हाम्रो मेन कुरो हो यहाँनिर यो it's about Australia's dependence on coal. That's the main thing. You important right now. So मैले अहिले यो अगाडि यही कुरा भन्दैछु कुन चाहिँ इन्फर्मेसनलाई चाहिँ इम्पोर्टेन्टली नै है राइटिङ टास्क 1 को सक्सेस पनि it all depends on it. हाम्रो मेन इन्फर्मेसन भनेको यो Australia's dependence on coal. यहाँनिर छ यत्रो कोलको छ यो सब कोलको यहाँनिर Australia's dependence on coal. सब कोलको हाम्रो मेन राइटिङ भनेको we want to explain and we want to provide with data we want to prove that Australia was dependent on coal I'm listening to first quote the conclusion
मैले यस्तो लेखे जस्तै हैन likewise the use of the dependency of hydro power increased slightly and reached 36 युनिट भन्ने लेख्यो त्यसको लाइक त्यो त मिस्टेक भयो भन्नु अनि त्यसको ठाउँमा चाहिँ मैले के लेख्नु पर्छ
36 युनिट चाहिँ कुन चाहिँ हो कहाँको लेख्यो
लाइक प्रिभियसली इन 1980 मा चाहिँ मैले यसरी लेखेको थिए क्या
ओके पहिला पुरा पढ नि त पुरा प्रवीण रिड द होल थिङ सबै कुरा पढ त पहिला
इन इयर 1980 Australia was highly dependent on coal as its dependent on coal as its source of electricity.
Wait. Dependent.
Dependent.
DEPENDENT. Okay. Comes from the word depending, dependence. Once again, read that again.
Australia
in the year. पहिला
in the year पनि लेख्नु मैले in 1980 लेखे अनि कमा दिएर
in 1980 okay
Australia was highly dependent on coal as its source of electricity by 50 unit similarly
by 50 units that's wrong by 50 units
half of it's one पर्यो
हैन मैले भनेको if you look at the picture half of your pie chart is 100% coal and pie chart भनेको basically 100% को divide गरेको र exactly half भनेपछि it dependent on coal for more than 50% of its electricity production and by using coal it produced 50 units not by 50 units dependence by 50 units it produced 50% of electricity from coal and 50% of electricity produced from coal in Australia meant that it used more than 50% of coal for its electricity. Right, your numbers are ramuri we are going to say. You can't say it was dependent on 50%. So that figure is also wrong. So what you could have said is in 1980, what you can say is in 1980 Australia, Australia was dependent on more than 50% of its electricity production from coal. And by using it, it produced 50 units of electricity. You're the electricity production, okay? While some other important sources were natural gas, and hydropower at 20 units. Finished. And then we moved straight away to 2000. Okay, read further. Okay, like you, Praveen. The first
Similarly, the use of hydro power and natural gases was at 20 units each.
Okay.
But in year 2000, Australia increased its dependency on coal from more than 50 units. And likewise, the use of a dependency of hydropower increased slightly and reached 36 units. Other sources were negligible or insufficient.
The use of other sources were negligible. Okay, fine. Dependency. Right? We have 50 units now. Don't use those units. You could say, but Navanera, use the word however. But it's too strong. But is a word that's too strong. It's very informal. Okay, it gives a very strong contrast. So if I were you, I would rather use the word however. So I would say, however, in 2000, Australia's dependence on electricity or on coal further increased to more than 75%, and it produced 130 units of electricity. Other sources used was hydropower, which increased from 20 units to 36 units. Besides it, the other sources were negligible. All right, so you're on the right track. So of course it's it's a first try. First try. The more you practice, the more you used to. So writing task 1 could say the main thing is the body pack. Okay, anyway, Praveen Kutiwa. So Arpana, I think by now you're done. Okay, can you just read it out?
So from the introduction or just the body paragraph?
A body paragraph.
Okay. So looking first at the production of electricity in Australia, it is increased from 100 units to 170 units in 20 years. As we can see, coal is still the main fuel source in Australia, as it produced 50 units in the past and 130 units in the present. The other sources Australia use are oil, natural gas, and hydropower. The other main source rather than coal is the hydropower, from which 36 units of electricity is produced lately, as compared to the 20 units in the back days.
Okay.
The other sources... Yes, sir?
Francisco? Did you write about France?
Yes, sir, yes. Well, the other sources is not much used in 2000 to produce the electricity in Australia. Secondly, on the next pie chart, it seems like France is dependent to nuclear power to produce most of its electricity in 2000. It used to produce 15 units in 1980 and 126 units in 2000, whereas the other sources such as coal and oil is on the same range of users and produce same range of units. The use of hydropower and natural gas is declined in present time, producing only 2 units respectively. Overall, comparing the two pie charts, both the countries produce much more units of electricity than the past using various fuel sources, as Australia is still depending on coal and France to the nuclear power for their electricity production. That's it.
Yeah, yes. China 18. But Arpana, the way you've evaluated the information, okay, organize, arrange, ekdam unnecessary words. Just say, use the word well. Well is very informal. All right. Well is more like a filler. Let's say speaking, you are thinking of your answer, you could say well. Okay, as many times as possible. So it's going to be a little informal. Don't use the word well. And the first line, looking at the first line.
Looking first at the production of electricity.
That was unnecessary. See, looking closely at the production of electricity. Unnecessary words were cut it out. Cut it out. Okay. Get to the point straight away. We want to use fewer words. We would like to say
the production of electricity in Australia.
Yes, directly. In case of Australia, with regards to Australia, okay, the electricity production, or regarding the electricity production in Australia. So you can start with the word regarding, with regard to, or in case of, direct. Hey, so to we can see. Oh, don't use the word we. All right, you would use a neutral tone. It. It very important. It would be it. The word it would be much better than I, you, or we. All right, so it's a neutral tone. Anyway, the rest is okay. All fine.
अनि त्यो conclusion-मा चाहिँ हैन लास्टमा लेख्दाखेरि फेरि एकचोटि अस्ट्रेलिया र फ्रान्स चाहिँ यति मात्र हो भनेर
conclusion यसो गर न त conclusion नलेख त्यही conclusion जुन चाहिँ छ हैन summary त्यो चाहिँ यो body paragraph को अगाडि राख्ने after introduction after intro. That's an overview. Finished.
सर अनि यतिकै सेकेन्ड प्याराग्राफ पछि यतिकै छोड्दा हुन्छ त्यसपछि चाहिँ
भइहाल्यो त conclusion परेन.
Okay sir.
Okay, so I leave it to you about conclusion लेख्ने नलेख्ने अब कस्तो लाग्छ तिमीलाई?
सर यदि कन्क्लुजन लेख्न लाग्यो भने पनि हल्का त्यो अस्ट्रेलिया र फ्रान्सको यति लेख्दा हुन्छ?
कन्क्लुजन त्यही नै हुन्छ जुन चाहिँ ओभरभ्यूमा हामीले लेख्छौं नि
हजुर
ओभरभ्यू नलेखेर चाहिँ आफ्टर बडी प्याराग्राफ चाहिँ हामीले लेखेको चाहिँ कन्क्लुजन हुन्छ. If you write it before the body paragraph conclusion, हाम्रो भयो त्यसलाई overview भनिन्छ. After body paragraph लेख्यो भने चाहिँ त्यसलाई conclusion भनिन्छ. कुरो त एउटा खाली प्लेसमेन्ट मात्र फरक है.
Yes sir.
Okay, अरु कसैले लेखेको छ? विजय?
हजुर सर.
लेखेको छौ? लेख्यौ अलिकति के? Okay, please read it out.
It can be clearly seen that in the year 1980 BS, Australia used to produce electricity through hydropower, which is 20% and 20% from the natural gas and 10% from the oil, and it produces and it used to produce 50% more electricity from the coal in the year 1980. After the modernization in 2000 BS.
Hang on there. Wait, Vijay. Where is modernization? How do you know modernized by
20 years man ta bhayihalcha ni.
त्यो त हो त्यस्तो कुरो नगर्ने नि त. That is what will give you less scores. हाम्रो यहाँ के
पर्सेन्टेज भन्दैछ पर्सेन्टेज हैन नि त यो त युनिट्स हो हैन र.
I'll get to that. त्यो पनि छ कुरो. यानी unit 50% unit भनेपछि if you change it to percentage त्यो wrong भयो factual information भएन. You're going to lose marks. अर्को कुरो modernization भन्ने तिमीले word लेख्दैछौ. So you're trying to say 1918 that 2020 वर्षमा चाहिँ जुनै देश पनि modernize हुन्छ भन्ने. तर त्यो आफ्नो तिम्रो हिसाबले गर नि त opinion. You should never ever do that. Please confine yourself to what you can see here. खाली जे चार्टमा देख्छ त्यति मात्र. Don't go beyond it. Okay, go on.
Australia developed producing electricity by in 2000 BS, Australia developed producing electricity by coal, which was the main sources of generating electricity in 2000. It has extended producing electricity by 16 units more than previous year. Finally, Australia enhances producing its electricity from 100 unit to 170 unit between the year 1980 to 2000. Whereas in the France in 1980, this country used to produce electricity through different sources like from coal, 25% from oil, from coal, 25 unit, from oil, 20 unit, from nuclear power, 15 unit. Over half electricity was produced through coal and from natural gas. After 20 years later, France starts producing more electricity through natural nuclear power. Around 75% of the electricity were only produced through nuclear power, and the remaining were produced through coal. 25 unit coal, 25 unit and 2 units from hydropower and nuclear gas. Yes, sir.
Okay, Vijay.
Yes, sir.
This is a very bad report. You have a bad report. You're writing everything. Details. Question keep on this. See, this is what most of the students do. Questions is clearly summarize the information by selecting and reporting the main features. Summarize. The very word summary भनेपछि हामीले के बुझ्छ त्यसलाई शॉर्ट गर्नु पर्यो नि त जुन कुरोलाई पनि स्कुलमा हामीले समरी लेखेको जस्तो है when you write a summary for poem हैन स्कुलमा जुन चाहिँ हामीले समरी लेखेको छ पोएमहरुको त्यसलाई चाहिँ शॉर्टमा गर्नु पर्यो नि त but you are writing everything in detail सबै डिटेल आइरहेछ यहाँ त फ्रान्सको पनि सबै डिटेल छ अस्ट्रेलियाको पनि सबै डिटेल छ this will not fetch you a good score so this is not report writing यो अलिक मिलेन तिमीले केमा फोकस गर्नु पर्थ्यो भने how Australia was dependent on coal. See, maximum electricity produced in Australia coalma, अझै पनि coalma depend गरिरहेछ. And even now, if you look at it, Australia is one of the biggest polluters in the world. It still uses coal, oil पनि. Still uses coal. भनेपछि हाम्रो मेन चाहिँ के छ भने Australia is too much dependent on coal. It's excessively dependent on coal. हामीले त्यो बुझ्नु पर्यो तर तिमीले अस्ट्रेलियाको डिपेन्डेन्स अन कोल स्टार्ट नगरेर तिमीले यो फिगरबाट स्टार्ट गरे सबै भन्यो 2010 त्यो पछि युएसमा आयो त्यहाँ फेरि आएर सबै युनिट भन्ने सबै भन्नु पर्दैन नि त युनिट हामीले भन्नु चाहेको चाहिँ द मेजर पोइन्ट जुन चाहिँ हामीले लेखेको छ मेन फिचर्स तिमीले त्यो मिस गर्दैछौ You're missing out on that. You're missing out on the main point. There are a lot of students actually do this to get a task bigger as answer. See. Look at it, Vijay Sapkota, and everybody listen to it very carefully. Vijay अहिले के गर्यो भने एकदमै बढी डिटेल लेख्यो हैन अब मिस्टेक हुन्छ ठिकै छ but I'm trying to correct you. एकदम धेरै डिटेल भयो क्वेशनले के भन्दैछ summarize the information by selecting and reporting the main features र यो रिपोर्टबाट चाहिँ हामीले सबै कुरो लेख्ने हैन हामीले मेन फिचर्स फाइन्ड आउट गर्ने र हाम्रो दुईटा मेन फिचर्स अस्ट्रेलियाको डिपेन्डेन्स अन कोल फ्रान्स पहिला variety of sources पछि its reliance or its dependence on nuclear power अब यो दुईटा पोइन्टलाई चाहिँ हामीले सपोर्ट गर्नु पर्यो त्यति मात्र अनि हामीले सपोर्ट गरेर चाहिँ मेन फोकस हाम्रो यहाँ हुनु पर्यो कोलमा अस्ट्रेलिया initially in 1980 produced more than half of its electricity from coal okay at 50 units and then we can see that 20 years later surprisingly it further depends on depends on coal for more than 75% production of electricity. And it's our main junja point. Why not mention that first instead of starting with this? Other sources used were 20 units each produced electricity produced from hydropower and natural gas. And only hydropower is used further by Australia, where it produces 36 units of electricity. Other sources have become negligent or insignificant. When we use the tense, our next ayakuro tense, past tense you could even write in the present tense. In the examination, you're writing it then and there. In the examination. right? So if you want to, you could write in the present tense. But because your past tense ma cha, you could use the past tense. The sabai kura past tense ma matra haina है किनभने कहिलेकाहीँ रिपोर्टहरुमा you'll also have something about the future. Future ko forecast huncha, future ko prediction, estimation huncha. So report does not always have to be in the past tense. Keep that in mind. Okay, so that was a lot of detail. And in that detail, we are careful. Vijay, all right? Hey, there is detail. Let's take a look at a sample. Okay, here you go. Model answer. This model has been prepared by an examiner, not by a student, by an examiner, as an example of very good answer. So excellent answer to examiner lekhigo, but it says here clearly, however, please note that this is just one example out of many possible approaches. So there are different ways of writing. यहाँ के छ यहाँ भिन्दै स्टाइल चाहिँ intro, body paragraph 1, body paragraph 2, conclusion. यही conclusion लाई चाहिँ introduction पछि लग्यो भने चाहिँ यहाँ लेख्यो भने चाहिँ त्यो conclusion लाई it becomes the overview. Difference चाहिँ त्यति है. So if we take this conclusion, put it right here after the introduction, your point, man. This is the overview. So overview is basically just change your position. So you should, depends on what you want to do, okay? Just go through it. सबैजना राम्रो हेरै
यो के रे sample answer सर यो के रे sample answer छ नि हो त कति ब्यान्ड को
ओ यो त ब्यान्ड 9 को इट्स प्रिपेयर्ड
हेर्दा त सिम्पल देखिन्छ
दिस इज सिम्पल त हुन्छ त अन्त who wants you to make it complex and simple त हुन्छ त. This is good writing. Good writing means keeping it very simple. हामी नेपालीहरुले पो त्यो इंग्लिशलाई कम्प्लेक्स बनाउँछ. खैरेले लेख्दा त एकदम सिम्पल लेख्छ. हामीले पो unnecessarily complex बनाउँछ. It's prepared by an examiner of very good answer. Excellent answer.
अनि सर त्यो हेर्नु नि अस्ट्रेलियाको फर्स्टमा हैन 1980 डिस्क्राइब गर्दाखेरि युनिटमा देख्छ अनि फेरि 2000 को डिस्क्राइब गर्दा पर्सेन्टेजमा देख्छ. त्यो लाइक कसरी अनि फर्स्टमा चाहिँ युनिट पनि लेख्नु लाइक युनिट नलेख्नु
युनिट 50 युनिट्स भनेर ब्र्याकेटमा लेखेको छ नि. गो थ्रु इट, प्लिज गो थ्रु इट. एकचोटि पहिला बुझ्ने कोसिस गर्नु न.
त्यो तपाईलाई युनिटमा नलेख्ने भने जस्तो लाग्यो.
मैले त्यस्तो भनेको छुइनँ. मैले युनिटमा नलेख्ने भनेकै छैन. सानसानो कुरामा फोकस नगर न. ट्राई टु अन्डरस्ट्यान्ड किन पर्सेन्टेज लेख्यो होला, किन त्यो युनिट लेख्यो होला. In 1980, Australia used coal as the main electricity source. Okay, 50 units. It produced 50 units of electricity. And the remainder were produced from natural gas, hydropower, each producing 20 units, and oil, which produced only 10 units. All right. भनेपछि हामीले सबै डिस्क्राइब गरेको छैन. हाम्रो मेन फोकस छ Australia producing electricity from coal. By 2000, coal had become the fuel for more than 75% of electricity produced. हामीले त्यो पिक्चर हेर्दाखेरि from the pie chart, it's very clear, पहिला 50% थियो, पछि more than 75% भयो. So यो 75% लेख्दाखेरि I don't think यो र यसमा त कन्फ्युजन हुने त कुरा हैन. यो भनेको 50 units electricity produced, यो भनेको 75% of electricity produced. So यसमा त कन्फ्युजन हुने कुरा हैन. And only hydro continued to be another significant source, supplying approximately 20%. Approximately, it's an approximation.
सर अनि कम्पेयर गर्दाखेरि चाहिँ हैन सेकेन्ड पाई चार्टमा पनि फर्स्टको बारेमा हल्का लेख्दा हुँदो रहेछ है त्यसो भएर
Oh, it depends on you.
जस्तै यहाँ but second paragraph but by 2000 nuclear power which was not used at all in Australia भनेर
Of course. Well, it depends on it. तिमीलाई एकदमै सेपरेट गरेर लेख्नु चाहन्छौ भने ठिकै छ हैन अब कम्पेयर गर्दाखेरि अस्ट्रेलियाको पनि लेख्छु फ्रान्सको म अलिकति लेख्छु भनेर लेख्दाखेरि ठिकै छ by 2000 nuclear power which is not used at all in Australia developed into the main source. Yeah, observe it carefully, eh? But by 2000 nuclear power, comma, which was not used at all in Australia, comma, when we see your words in this, this is used more like a modifier, isn't it? You want to get it's used like an extra information. The main sentence, by 2000 nuclear power had developed into the main source, producing almost 75% units of electricity at 126 units, while coal, oil, and blah, blah, blah. When you look at this sentence, your sentence is only complex. Look at the variety of sentence structure. We can use a variety of sentence structure. And compare garnu, no garnu, I leave it to you. As you can see, you sentence this is only extra information. It's still about France. There are France could be some Australia comparison. So you can still do that. Now, if you observe this sentence, it's broken up into so many pieces. Here's the first part, your second part, your third part, there's a comma, for the fourth part, there's a comma, fifth part, there's a comma, there's a sixth part. There are 6 parts to this sentence. So this is a complex sentence. But the complex sentence is immediately balanced by a simple sentence. 11 just syntactical variations. Sentence structure variety. Ekai khalko sentence haina. Your sentence, if you look at it, it's a very simple sentence. Euta seedha sada straightforward sentence. Whereas esko agadiko yo sentence ho kati complex. And if you look at vocabulary, lexical resource vocabulary, yahaneri esko nabujhdo word kehi cha ta? Examiner le use गर्ने एकदमै difficult word छैन नि. So good English does not mean using fancy, difficult words. Good English actually means using words precisely. Even if it's a very simple word, you have to use it precisely to be a lexical resource. But we need to make sure that we don't repeat the words very often. अब यहाँनिर एउटा कुरा observe गरौँ है everybody. Yo bhaya hamro introduction. We simply restate the topic by paraphrasing it. But did you notice something? The next sentence between. Okay? This is extra information. This information, you between but I start karego. Alright? Your information say, actually what we could have done is, your information we could have still written it in the conclusion. Conclusion add garnu milthyo. Don't you think so? Yahi information cha conclusion ma add garnu milthyo. Because that's part of the conclusion. So the point I'm trying to make here is there's nothing like one style of writing. Okay, you can write it in so many different ways. तर अब हामीले सिम्पल वेमा लेख्दाखेरि चाहिँ हामीले इन्ट्रोडक्सन लेख्यो कन्क्लुजन यो भयो अनि यो जुन चाहिँ 100 to 170 युनिट्स भनेर यसलाई हामीले कन्क्लुजनमा लेख्न सक्छौं या यसलाई चाहिँ हामीले ब्रेकअप गरेर नेक्स्ट प्याराग्राफमा लेख्यौं चाहिँ ओभरभ्यू हैन ओभरभ्यूमा यहाँ तलको कन्क्लुजन इन्क्लुड गर्ने यो पनि इन्क्लुड गर्न सक्दिया अनि two paragraphs of the body and look at how simple in the most simple way too. So the best reports always written in the simplest way. The simple लेख्नु गाह्रो पर्छ नि हामीले हेर्दाखेरि पनि कति सिम्पल छ भने आफैले लेख्दा त गाह्रो पर्छ नि You know, back in school our teachers used to say the best English is always the simplest one. That they simple लेख्नुलाई कति गाह्रो पर्छ. Right? It needs practice. So what we're looking at here is not complex English. We are looking at simplicity. Right? Yet variety. So Yaniro, if you look at it, task achievement, in case of task achievement, right, everything has been achieved, Yaniro, complete work. Coherence, the ideas are separated in separate paragraphs. Cohesion, the same ideas are well linked together, okay, by some connecting words and phrases. Just say in contrast, opposite boy, you know. So like that, we'll have to while or a connecting word. Okay, so but in contrast, while by 2000. So all of these, let's say, your ideas are like connect, and then finally I'll grammar. We have to display a variety of grammatically correct sentence. The simple sentence of your sentence is very complex. All right, so we've got to try about these things. So report writing matra haina. Essay writing, we have to think about variety of sentence structure. Okay, we always need to think of variety. Sentence structure. You matrai lekheram bhayen yesto complex sentence lekheram. Yo yesto short sentence matra lekheram bhayen. There must be a mixture, an interesting mixture of such kind of sentences. Anyway, I think I've taken a hell lot of time. We end it here today. Tomorrow we'll try another, and I'll give you home assignment exercises. Right? So tomorrow you're going to get home assignments, exercises. Nabin, Bujo, is this clear? Ajiko task. Takes a boldly, they can say, I'll give you exercises. I know. I think exercise there at Sojil. One more thing, hey. Jati Noya student, I want you to send an email address to Priya. Priya email address and then she will forward it to me, and to email I can send you some materials.
So
okay, thank you.
Already sent it.
All right.
अनि चाहिँ एउटा कुरा सबैजनालाई भोलिबाट चाहिँ प्लिज सबैजनाले कम्पल्सरी चाहिँ भिडियो चाहिँ अन गर्नु होला, म्यान्डेटरी। मैले भन्न त भनिसके अस्ति पनि, कसैलाई के प्रब्लम छ भिडियो अन गर्नमा?
नो
छैन नि है। युवराज के प्रब्लम छ? के हुँदैन? ओके, विजयको
छैन।
ओके, प्रवीण
मेरो त छ भनौँ न।
छ के छ भन? छन् त छ के छ त?
लाइक फोनबाट हेर्दा हल्का सानो देखिँदैन, जुम गरेर नजिकै लिएर हेर्नुपर्छ है त्यहाँ नि। अनि
अर्पणाजीको त छैन, आइम स्योर। म स्योर छु केही छैन भनेर। विभूत सर छैन नि है। भोलिबाट सबैले म्यान्डेटरी भिडियो अन गरिदिनु होला, किनभने सरले पढाइरहनु भएको हुन्छ अनि बीचबीचमा कसैलाई क्वेसन सोधिरहनु भएको छ अनि कसैले टाइममा रेस्पोन्स गर्नु भएको छैन है। अब के गरिरहनु भएको छ नि हामीलाई थाहा नै हुँदैन, सुतिरहेको हो कि खेलिरहेको हो कि के गरिरहेको हो, पढिरहेको हो, थाहा नै हुन्न क्या। अलिकति इन्टरेक्ट गर्नु पर्यो नि त, सजिलो हुन्छ नि त फेस टु फेस देखिसकेपछि होइन। सर भिडियो अन गर्नु भएको छ, पढाउनु भएको छ, सरले सबैलाई त देखिनु पर्यो नि त क्लियरली, अनि बल्ल पो पढाएको मजा आउँछ त, अनि पढेको पनि मजा आउँदैन त त्यसपछि है। त्यही भएर भोलिबाट सबैजनाले भिडियो चाहिँ अन गरिदिनु होला ल है त। ओके ल, हस्।
म्याम हैन हो कस्तो म्याम?
भन्नुहोस् प्रवीणजी, भन्नुहोस्। भन प्रवीण।
ए हैन तपाईलाई म्याम भन्नु चित्तिरहेको
के भो?
Okay. All right. Boli चाहिँ we'll start with the exercises also. But yeah, of course, Priyale भनेको ठीक हो, मैले कोला पढाउँदै छु, I don't know. Maybe I'm just talking to myself. It's no funny. A classमा एउटा in-person classमा I can see students right in front of me. You know, you all are used to more. You all are more used to in-person class. I'm also used to this. But अब यो यस्तो situation where we have to adapt to new system. We have to adapt to new ways of learning. Until new ways of learning adapt गर्दाखेरि, if you don't turn in the video, despite my having said that so many times, pre-alim कति चोटि भनेर, if you don't do it, what's the point? Like it's like you withdrawing away. If you turn on a video, it's still like in-person class. त्यस्तो भने त तिमीहरु पछि त क्लासरुममा आउनु त लजाउने रहेछ त. मास्कमा त हैन पुरा त्यो लाखे
हामीले चिन्दा पनि चिन्दैनौँ क्लासमा
मारुनी लाखेको मास्क लगाएर आउने हुन्छ त. त्यो त भएन नि त. यहाँ पनि क्लासै हो. आखिरी अनलाइन पनि क्लास हो. I can see you. पछि गएर फिजिकल क्लास लिन्छ in person भने त्यो पनि क्लासै हो. It's the same thing. And yeah, you should all turn on the video. Hey, it'll always be good. So I'll be expecting that. Right? So, well, that's all for today.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, bye, everybody.
Bye-bye, sir.
Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye-bye, Dean.